So, welcome everyone. My name is Bill McCracken. I am an instructor with Brown University for their mindfulness based programs. And I'm also a teacher trainer as well. And I teach primarily the mindfulness based cognitive therapy class and the foundations class. So, I hope you're all in the right spot. You're here for some information on the mindfulness based cognitive therapy program. Yeah, okay, wonderful. So why don't we get started? What I'd like to do is go through some information. So I'm going to use a PowerPoint actually so that you have a visual aid. It'll help keep me on track. And then we'll have some time towards the end that I'll leave for any questions that you might have. So if you have any questions right now that you're thinking of, just if you can hold them until we get to that spot, probably about maybe 10 minutes before we end today, we can address some of those things as well. Okay. And one of the things I'd like to do now is post my email address in the chat. So you may want to make a copy of that. Just in case you have some questions after today, if you want to reach out to me, you most certainly can do that. Okay. So let me go ahead and share my screen. So what you're going to see is you're going to see one of my other screens for just a moment so that I can have a split screen here. 1 second. Okay. Can you all see that screen okay? Good. All right. So I want to just start off by talking a little bit about the origins of mindfulness-based cognitive therapy. Now, some of you here, and maybe just a quick show of hands, how many here are already familiar with mindfulness-based cognitive therapy? Wonderful. Yeah. So we'll just go over a little bit of some of the history here. So in the late 1990s, this program was developed by Zindel Siegel, Mark Williams, and John Teasdale. The mindfulness-based stress reduction program that was created by John Kabat-Zinn was already in play by that time. Just to give you a little bit of history as to what led these three people to develop this, is that they were all doing research on on cognitive therapy, and some of the potential for relapse that they were seeing that people were experiencing with mood states, particularly depression. And they were really curious as to what was going on with the relapse after they had already received cognitive behavioral therapy, and maybe coming up with some things that might help with that process. So they had no interest in mindfulness or really much information about mindfulness at that particular time. So the story goes that there was a conference where a couple of the creators ran into Marsha Linehan. Now, some of you may be familiar with Marsha Linehan and her work in dialectical and behavioral therapy. And they were exchanging information, and Marsha said to them, you ought to really reach out to John Kabat-Zinn and see what he's doing, because I think some of the things that you're talking about that would help with relapses around depression after their initial treatment of cognitive behavioral therapy, mindfulness might be the thing that you're looking for. So they really had no interest in mindfulness in the beginning. Their interest was in looking at ways to prevent future relapses into depression. And once they started looking into the mindfulness courses, they took them themselves and realized there was some elements here that could really, really be helpful. So just keeping in mind that initially the goal was to prevent relapse in people with recurrent depression by combining cognitive therapy principles and mindfulness training and practices.
Humans can control AI, but if we find one another,
Hold on 1 second.
they control us. Therefore, we should build more trust between humans before.
Okay. Sorry, we had some external stuff coming in. So if we look at the influence of MBCT, it's adapted a structure and core practices from John Kabat-Zinn's MBSR program, but also bringing in lots of elements from cognitive theory, cognitive behavioral, cognitive science. So all of those things are implemented in the MBCT program. So the key insights that were discovered in how to prevent or reduce the intensity of depression, there is some elements within the 8-week MBCT program that specifically addresses that. So there's training awareness of thoughts and feelings. And there's also this process to develop a different relationship to experience, especially difficult experiences, recognizing habitual patterns of experiential avoidance, and I would also add emotional avoidance that can trigger or worsen depression. Disengage from automatic negative thinking patterns that trigger depression relapses and perpetuate depressive episodes. So the research has expanded recently to include anxiety and widely used for mental health and well-being. In Canada and in the UK, MBCT is considered to be one of the applications of treatment that is accepted. It's not something as widely accepted in the United States, but it's becoming more so recently. So in the UK and in the Canadian health systems, it's considered treatment as normal for mild to moderate depression. Okay. Oh, I'm jumped backwards. I apologize. So here's the three creators, Sindel Siegel, Mark Williams, and John Teasdale. So if we look at what is the MBCT program, it is primarily a group modality, just like the 8-week MBSR program. It's something that runs for 8 weeks, and each class is roughly 2.5 hours long. And there's a structured curriculum, and this is the parts that the creators of MBCT really liked, that it wasn't just a mindfulness class. There was actually some structure to what they were observing in the 8-week MBSR program, and they wanted to adapt that structure, but then add the things that they were adding from MBCT. So that means that if it's modeled after an 8-week MBSR program, then the MBCT program is also very highly experiential in nature. So what that means is that we're working with people right here in the moment with whatever their moment-to-moment experience is. And so when we look at how this is kind of like laid out in the 8-week program, we see that there is systematic training in foundational mindfulness meditation practices. So there's brief practices and informal practices. So things like a body scan, sitting meditation, body practices like some light hatha yoga that's put into that as well, and other body movement practices. And there's informal practices like inviting people to just pay attention to what they're doing when they're doing typical things around the house, like maybe folding laundry or washing the dishes. So all of these things are part of what's included in the program. But there's also the inclusion of cognitive activities. So there's things where we look at thought patterns that appear during anxious moods and depressed moods. And a lot of that has to do with being able to investigate those particular thought patterns that tend to be pretty similar across the board for everyone. So one thing that it does is it normalizes that process for people. But we were really looking at the nature of the mind and the tendency of the mind with those particular thought patterns and how that contributes to distress, depression, and anxiety. So we also use in-class and home practice to explore and investigate the personal experience of each person and the key learnings of the arc of the curriculum. Right. So the arc of the curriculum is usually class 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then 7 and 8. So some of the things that we're looking at, if we look at each class theme, is autopilot versus awareness. Second week, living in our heads. Third week, gathering the scattered attention. And then recognizing aversion, allowing and letting be, thoughts are not facts, and how can we best take care of ourselves. And the last class is carrying the learning forward. So it's kind of a process of figuring out how you're going to take what you've learned in the class and continue to use it. So there are practices between each session. So it's not just showing up for 2.5 hours and doing the class and then coming back the following week. You are doing practices every day in between classes so that you have an opportunity to really work with the skill sets that are involved here. So there's a strong body of evidence that MBCT can prevent mood states like depression. And the course was designed initially for people that had already done some cognitive behavioral therapy but had relapsed. So the idea is that the prevention that we're talking about is prevention of further relapses into those mood states. The research shows that it does reduce the risk of depressive relapse, and it has been said to perform comparably to antidepressant medications while surpassing usual care. So, I'm always cautious about that statement because we don't want people that are on medications thinking that taking MBCT and immediately means that they don't have to be on medication. There are some people that do need to be on medication, and there's certainly nothing wrong with that. What might happen over time is that you may feel that you could come off the medication or reduce dosage, but obviously all of that has to be done under the supervision of the prescribing physician, right? So current symptom relief is also in the research too. So beyond prevention, MBCT helps individuals that are experiencing depressive symptoms have some level of hope through the practice that they have a building of a skill set that can help them through this, right? The research on the economic part of this is that it's a financially sound alternative to traditional cognitive behavioral therapy, making quality mental health care more sustainable and widely available. So that's one of the things that is in the research as well. And they've also looked at when other treatments fall short, for those who have not found relief through other approaches, MBCT can offer another promising step for them. Okay. So I have one more information slide, and then I want to go through the trajectory of training for those that may be interested in training at some point to become an MBCT teacher. So let's look at the teaching process here. The two primary aims of the training program is to get high quality level of training for individuals with the evidence-based curriculum that is the 8-week program. And it is a rigorous program and is designed and researched to get people who are taking it to become effective as MBCT teachers, right? It's to deepen and strengthen the teacher's personal mindfulness practice, because you will see that there is a prerequisite to have an ongoing practice before you start training. And Zindel Siegel, one of the developers of the program, has consulted with Brown and continues to teach with Brown in the Mindfulness-Based Cognitive Therapy Teacher Advancement Intensive. So if you did decide to train in this, one of your training processes towards the end would be in a class with one of the founders of the program. So there's a two-step pathway for teaching. You can become qualified or you can become certified. So the way that the teaching process unfolds is that you would take an MBCT course for yourself first, right? Then you would take another MBCT course for yourself while you're taking a course called Foundations. And the reason why we want people to take it a second time is because the second time is when you enter into the MBCT program as a participant observer. The first time was for your own experience. The second time is to enter into participant observer process and watch what's going on in the class and process your experience in the class as well. So when you sign up for Foundations, you're signing up for both classes. You're not paying for both classes because the tuition of the Foundations course includes the MBCT course that you will be a part of, okay? And you can, after Foundations, you can become a not a qualified MBCT teacher, but you can become a qualified facilitator of MBCT, which means that you can deliver small classes or info sessions on MBCT, but you can't teach the full 8-week program until you're qualified. And some people end at the qualified stage, and I'll show all of this to you in a second, because they're qualified to teach the 8-week program and they really don't want to do much more than that in the training process. If you go on to get certification, it's a little bit longer of a process, and that is an opportunity for you to have further training along the way to become fully certified in MBCT. So that's really kind of how a lot of this unfolds in the training process. So I'm going to show you a graphic here that makes it a little bit easier than reading all the words because you're trying to put all that together. If you look from left to right, you can see what's involved in the courses and where you end up in the end. So the first slide I'm showing you is where you could terminate at being a qualified MBCT teacher and you can teach the 8-week course, right? So you have the prerequisites that I was talking about before. And if we go back to this slide, the prerequisites is that you have 2 years of mindfulness practice. That's preferred. But we have taken into consideration people that have, 1 year of practice. And we would talk with you individually around what that looks like for you. You have to have a graduate degree in counseling, social work, psychology, healthcare, or education in order to be able to qualify to take MBCT. The basic training and understanding of CBT is also expected. And then that doesn't mean that you have to be certified in cognitive behavioral therapy. There's a lot of places to get those kinds of certification. It just means that you have to have some training in it. And obviously, if you have a graduate degree in counseling or social work, you've already been exposed to CBT. But if you took a class or two just for CEUs around CBT, that qualifies as well. We just want to make sure that you have some exposure to traditional CBT because that helps to understand what we're doing in the MBCT program. We also want to see that people have professional experience working with individuals who experience depression, anxiety, and challenging mood states. Doesn't mean that you have to be someone who's delivering services directly for that, but you may be someone who's providing services and the population of people that you work with are experiencing this, which pretty much covers everyone, right? Because we all experience depression and anxiety. Right? And then you have to complete the 8-week MBCT course, as we said earlier. So if you go back to this then, you can see that those prerequisites fall into place here. And then, I skipped ahead. My mouse is just so sensitive. I am sorry. you would do the prerequisites, and then you could take the MBCT course. That's the foundations course that happens. I'm sorry, this is just jumping around everywhere here. So you would take MBCT, then you would take foundations. Once you've done foundations, as I said, you can become a mindfulness facilitator, and you're qualified to guide mindfulness practices and offer introductory workshops. If you move on to the teacher advancement intensive, then you would do that and then be able to be qualified to teach the 8-week program. And you'll notice that you'd have to teach a minimum of 3 introductory sessions before you can get into the TAI. And that's relatively easy to do, especially if you're working with an agency and you do like a brown bag lunch lecture on MBCT. Those things count, right? And what we do in foundations is we prepare you for that, because one of the things you do in foundations is you do a short presentation of MBCT to a particular population that you would think of presenting to within class, and then you already have an outline of your material. So we get you prepared for that. If you go for full certification, you'll see that after the qualified teacher area and during this whole process, you can take a class called Dialogue and Inquiry. You can also take another course called Ethos of Mindfulness-Based Programs. You can also be taking some 2 5 to 7 day silent retreats, or we also accept 4 3-day silent retreats. So during this process, you're doing all of these things. And then you can do mindful mentoring, which is where you have a mentor assigned to you that can look over your materials and see some of the things that you've been teaching through video recordings and audio recordings. And then you have a review, and then you can get final certification. So that's kind of how the trajectory looks. And I want to go ahead and stop the share here around that. And I want to ask if people have questions about that. I know I covered a lot of ground, the history, and the training trajectory can get a little confusing sometimes. So any questions anyone has about that, I'd be glad to answer that for you.
Hi, Bill.
Yeah,
I'm
Kara.
Kara.
Hi.
Hi.
Hey.
So I wanted, if you could speak a little bit, because I know the courses that you're offering this spring are all online. And how does that feel? I did MBSR years ago just as a person, and it was all in person at a studio, and it added so much to the experience. So
Yeah.
would love to hear your thoughts, feedback you've received about virtually versus in person for the course.
Yeah, so I mean, I find that there's positives and negatives on both sides, right? When we do it online, we can get people from all over the place to take it, right? And there are a lot of people outside of the United States that are very interested in this. So now they have an opportunity to train at Brown, which is great. The other thing that I think is really wonderful about doing online classes is that you have an opportunity to do it in your own space, right? And there's something to be said about being in your own space when you're taking the training, because it's convenient to you, it's familiar to you, and oftentimes what we retain in learning happens because we're learning in a familiar environment. So those are the positive things. But of course, some of the downfalls is that we don't have the close connection and camaraderie if we were in a physical space together. I was someone who was kind of in opposition to doing anything online when it came to mindfulness, but once COVID came, we kind of had no choice, and I've actually changed my tune a little bit. I find that I have some of the same experiences with people in the class whether they're online or in person. So I don't, I mean, for some people it may be challenging. I find that it's actually a pretty rich class still when it's online.
Great. Thank you. Appreciate it. Thanks.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, Deepak, I think you're muted, just to make sure you open your mic
Okay.
there. Yeah, there you go.
I'm not very educated in this field, so bear with me.
Mm,
I have two quick questions. One is, what would be the top two or three benefits of MBCT? And number two, if I were to practice it on myself, what can I hope to accomplish or achieve? And the process of how would I practice MBCT on myself to
mm,
more as a preventive so that I
mm.
have better thoughts and don't get into depressive or negative thinking. How does that work?
Yeah, so what we do in the 8-week course is not only are we learning mindfulness skills that help you build attentional regulation, like where to put your attention, how to put your attention there, how to relate to thoughts. One of the things that MBCT is really working on is helping build a different relationship to your thought patterns than you may had before. Because when we're in automatic pilot, we may automatically go into a particular set of thought patterns, and those particular set of thought patterns are the ones that can help maintain and perpetuate depressive mood states. So by identifying those things and cultivating a sense of awareness, body sensations, thoughts, emotions, and being aware of what those things actually are when they're occurring in certain mood states, so that you're more aware of them and have a more accurate appraisal of what's going on with them in each moment. And so to answer the other part of your question is, you would learn this by doing the practices every week. So once you're done class, you will have learned how to do some practices, and then you would be asked to do those practices on your own. And by continuing to do those practices on your own, you're cultivating a stronger sense of that awareness that I'm talking about. And you're building a stronger sense of having the skills to be able to relate to those thoughts differently than you might have before, so that they're not so automatic. You're able to step back and parse out your experience into the body sensations, thoughts, and emotions, so that you're more aware of what's happening before you get full blown into a depressive state. I hope that answered your question.
Can I ask one more?
Yeah, yeah.
What would be the very best book for a layperson on cognitive therapy, mindfulness based, especially if it's for John Kabat? I'm a fan of John Kabat-Zinn.
Yeah, so the best book for that is, why is it not here? Oh, there it is. I knew I had it here. It is The Mindful Way Through Depression. Okay. There is
Mhm.
another book called Mindfulness-Based Cognitive Therapy for Depression, but that really is more towards people that are learning how to teach it, because all the research is in there, how the classes are broken up. This is really an opportunity to go through the process in the book. And
Mhm.
it's by Mark Williams, John Teasdale, Zindel Ziegel, the creators, and there are meditations in here, and there is some elements in here by John Kabat-Zinn.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you. Anyone else? Questions? Curiosities? Yeah, Nancy.
You know how Brown offers the weekly drop-in for MBSR?
Yes.
Do you offer something like that for MBCT?
So, like, I'm teaching. I'm not. I don't want to say teaching. I'm facilitating the one next week. So, for example, it would really be the same for both in that regard, because when we're doing the drop in, we're really doing meditation practice and maybe sharing a few things. And so in that regard, MBCT folks and MBSR folks can come to that, because the MBCT part is really something that we would talk about specifically in class. Not sure if I'm answering that for you.
Because I want to I want to experience MBCT to figure out which one really is the right way to go. It sounds like MBCT is something that I would want to do, but I want to experience it before I would sign up for that one, as opposed to MBSR.
Yeah, so it would be kind of hard to do that because each class is working on a different theme. So the
Mhm.
differences between MBSR and MBCT is that mindfulness-based stress reduction is really just for the general population. It's anybody who's dealing with stress and life problems and learning how to reduce stress, learning how to interact with stress physiology, right? You learn about stress physiology in MBSR. I mean, there is some discussion of how to interact with thoughts, how to interact with stories that we create, right? But MBCT is doing a little bit of a deeper dive on the end of what those thought patterns are, how those thought patterns relate to perpetuation of mood states like depression, for example. So we do a little bit of a deeper dive into thought patterns, thinking processes than MBSR would do. Because, you know, the people that are taking MBCT are people that are probably struggling with some level of depression and some level of anxiety. Whereas in MBSR, they may be, but it's really not targeting that specifically, and MBCT does.
Mhm.
Yeah. I mean, I'm certified in MBSR and I'm, you know, an MBCT teacher as well. And like, I'll give you an example. I'm doing a local group that I just finished about a month ago with a cancer support community. And we did MBSR, and it was great. But I realized when I was doing it, some of the things that people are struggling with their cancer treatment and working with treatment and survival and all of that, it would probably be better suited for MBCT. So I'm going to run another round of that class locally and do it from an MBCT perspective so that people can really have an opportunity to address specific thought patterns and moods, which we do a little bit more extensively in MBCT than we would in MBSR.
Mhm. Thanks.
Yeah. Anyone else? I think we went kind of fast. I feel that we did. It depends on how many people are here, really. But yeah, you know, we've got time, so please ask any questions. Yeah, Soia, I hope I'm saying that right.
Yeah, it's Sylvia. The W
Oh,
is like,
Sylvia.
yeah,
Oh,
but it's
okay.
with a
I couldn't
W.
see.
Thank you, Bill. My question is about the qualified retreats that
Yeah.
you, uh, yeah, the silent retreats, and there is a little asterisk next to qualified. Would you be able to comment what would be considered a qualified retreat, and does it have to be with Brown or, you know,
It,
what? Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be with Brown. When we say qualify, we want to make sure that there's actually a teacher who's leading it that has some level of credibility. So you could take it with maybe you practice Zen and you have a Zen group and there's a guiding teacher there for that group and you do a 3-day retreat. We would take that. Maybe you belong to a Vipassana center and there's a teacher there. We would take that. Maybe it would be someone, you know, it could be a mindfulness group, right? Who has a retreat, but we want to make sure that that it's teacher led. right? It's not just a group of people that say, oh, hey, let's get together and do a retreat. What qualifies this is that there is a teacher there who's teaching, the process of meditation. That's what we would say is qualified. But, we go on a case by case basis for those things. If someone comes and said, yeah, I did 4 retreats with my MBSR group and I did 1 with my teacher, we would take some of those things into consideration because that's obviously evidence that you have an ongoing practice and you're immersing yourself into it at a level where you're taking retreats.
Thank you. It clarifies things. Thank you, Bill.
Yeah, Deepak.
Thank you. One more. The area I personally want to focus on, and I'm going to paraphrase it, is where man's search for meaning talks about that between a stimulus and a response, there's a gap, there's a space, and how you utilize that space builds character and et cetera, et cetera. That's an area I want to explore more and develop practice for myself. Where do I go to find more practical applications of how does one finesse that quality? Is there any books, any videos, any whatever that I can consult, any people I can consult and who can coach me?
Yeah, so you're talking about like Viktor Frankl's work,
Yes,
right?
yes, yes.
So, anything in logos therapy or positive psychology, I mean, that's all going to have loads of that kind of stuff in there. MBCT also approaches it that way,
I thought, yeah, that's, yeah,
right? In between the stimulus and response, there's,
right.
right? So, we typically react versus respond. And a
Mm-hmm.
lot of that reactivity is because we are conditioned. And we're conditioned usually with particular thought patterns and behaviors. And those things we look at very specifically in MBCT. Those things are looked at in MBSR too.
Mm-hmm.
But again, in MBCT, we're really looking at thought. I mean, we have a whole list of thought patterns that we go through, and we look at these things and we say, hey, do you identify with any of these particular thought patterns? More than likely you do, because it's a universal thing that we do when we're in those mood states. So we identify those things. And then we look for signature thoughts that are just ours. Like these are the ones that I have when I'm in those depressive thought patterns. So yeah, that is looking at the space between the stimulus and response. Because what is going on between something that gets us activated and then choosing to respond? Are we choosing to respond or are we just automatically reacting?
Mm-hmm.
And so MBCT and MBSR is very clearly looking at what you're bringing up here.
But is there any book or video that just focuses on that aspect? I want to really train myself, my own mind.
I would say The Mindful Way Through Depression would be an awesome place to
Okay.
start.
Okay, great. Above
Yeah.
positive psychology, right? Okay.
Yeah, see, the thing about positive psychology and logos theory and all of that is that a lot of those things become theories, and there's not
Yeah,
necessary pragmatic, practical ways to do things. The whole
true.
thing about these mindfulness programs is that they are teaching you a process, a way to do it, right?
Right.
So you can read all about the theory and it's great, but like, how do I do it?
Right.
Well, you do it like this.
Okay. Thank you.
Uh-huh. Yeah, Jay, you have your hand up. Hi, Jay.
Hello, how are you?
Hi, how are you?
I'm good, thanks. I just had a quick question. I was wondering,
Yeah.
are you guys anticipating doing any in person anytime, or?
I don't know. I think because we have so many people from all around the world that are taking it,
Mm-hmm.
I just don't know. I mean, we haven't had any discussions about doing it in person because we get people from, Singapore, from Europe, from all around the United States, from Australia. I mean, we just get people from all over the place. And so it's kind of hard to then divide those classes up to the ones that could actually come to Brown and the ones where they can't. So I'm not saying it won't be done. I just don't know of anything on the horizon right now, Jay.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. I appreciate
Yeah.
it. I did the I was waiting for the mindfulness-based stress reduction one in person, and I
Hmm.
completed that last year. I was with Aaron, so I was waiting again. I was like, okay, so they finally had a in-person one. I'll wait for the cognitive one. So hopefully one day.
Yeah, maybe. I just don't know. I mean, it's just me and Patty right now, so I don't know. Yeah. I'm not
Okay. All right,
saying, yeah,
awesome.
we're not saying no. We just don't know when that would happen.
Okay. All right, sounds good. Thank you so much for the information.
Yeah, sure.
All right, take care.
Yeah, you too.
How often do you offer the training for
So,
MBCT?
so MBCT is offered every, we have one. So like for right now, I'm in the middle of winter. Then we're going to do spring. Then we'll do summer. Then we'll do fall. So we have it pretty much 4 times a year. And foundations is typically offered 2 times a year, sometimes more, depending on how many people are interested in doing it. So we've done those, I'd say on average, probably 3 times a year. The teacher advancement intensive is only once a year, and it's in April. And that's because we do want to continue teaching that with Zindel Siegel. So, and that's when he's available to do that for us. It's really great to have him in that class. And it's really great to learn from one of the developers of the program, right? So that's kind of how that unfolds typically.
So we could just sign up for the foundations alone?
No, you would have to do MBCT first.
Okay.
And then when you sign up for foundations, you're going to take MBCT again. But when you're signing up for foundations, you're already signing up for MBCT again. It's not like you got to sign up for 2 classes. What happens is we know that you're in foundations because it's like, oh, you've signed up for foundations. And here's when MBCT is being offered. There's one in the morning, there's one in the evening. What suits you best? And then we stick you in that class because you're supposed to be really observing your lived experience in class while you're processing things in the foundations course.
And what's the price of the class?
I don't have prices here. Usually there's someone here with me. If you go to the Brown website, let me just go there real quick. If you put in Brown mindfulness in your search, it'll come right up. And then it's at the School of Public Health. So you go in there and then you look at for aspiring MBCT teachers. And then you'll see the courses that are offered there. And then once you look through that material, you have an idea of, it'll show you the prices there. So I'm not really showing all of that right here. So if you go to mindfulness.sph, School of Public Health, .brown.edu, you can find all that information right there. All right. In fact, let me put the link here in the chat. Okay, so if you follow that link, then you can start poking around in there and you can find that information.
Thanks.
Sure. So if you click on, there's a link in the link that I sent you. I'm going to put that here too. That takes you to the School of Professional Studies, which is where we teach out of. And then that's where you can start looking at the curriculum, registration and cost. So MBCT Foundations and Facilitator Training is $2,879 for the 8 weeks, and that does include your MBCT course that you'd be taking too. And we do work with people if there's any financial hardship. So we've done that quite a lot. So if it's something that you feel you can't afford, don't let that close the door on you. You can always reach out to us and we can talk about your situation and see if there's some funding for you. All right. Anyone else? So how many people here are actually considering going on the training pathway to teach at some point? Okay. Yeah, that's exciting. Yeah, I've had a lot of people in these info sessions that do. They end up in my MBCT course, they end up in foundations, and they go on to the teacher advancement intensive, and it seems like that it looks like a long way off when you're sitting where you're at now, but it doesn't really take all that long to do that. If you do an MBCT, you could go right into foundations and then you could do the TAI. I mean, realistically speaking, you could do all of it within a year.
So Bill, on the calendar, it says summer dates coming soon in February. So it's the Excel spreadsheet that's color coded. I can put it in the chat if people want to look. Just kind of check back just to see because I'm wondering if I can take the first in the spring and then to your point, just kind of keep going through.
Put that link in, Kara. That would be great. I know they're working on it because I just sent my okay to that Friday.
Nice. Oh, okay.
So,
cool.
Yeah. So then that means, they've gotten the okay from me. They've gotten the okay from Patty. So I think they're going to go ahead and run everything. So it'll probably pop up on there within the few days, I think. Probably by Wednesday, I would think.
Do you ever teach at night or you're the day person and she's the night person?
We switch back and forth.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah. I'm teaching at night now, but then I think I'll be teaching in the morning in the spring.
Yeah, that's how it's listed on the registration, is that you're the day and she's the night for spring on the registration page. So.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. Yeah, wonderful. Any other questions or concerns before we wrap up here today? I hope I didn't go too fast. There was a lot to cover, and then I realized we didn't have many people here. So, yeah. Deepak, do you have your hand up? Okay. So anything else? We're good? So in the chat is my email address. If you have any questions, should something come up, go ahead and send me an email and I'll respond to that. Okay?
Thank you for your help.
Thank you so much. This is really
Thank you
helpful.
very much.
Wonderful to see all of you. I hope to see you
Yes.
soon. All right.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.